Valerie's Victory Ride. Valerie had a brand new bicycle, shiny and blue like a summer sky. It was perfect in every way, except for one small thing. The training wheels were gone, and suddenly, the bike seemed wobbly and tall, and much too big for a girl like her. "You're ready for this," her mom Clara said, giving her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Just look ahead and pedal." Valerie took a shaky breath, climbed on, and pushed off. The bike wobbled left, then right, and then tumbled over, landing her softly on the grass with a little oomph. "I can't do it," Valerie said, her bottom lip trembling. The path ahead looked like a long, winding ribbon, and her confidence felt as wobbly as the bike. "It's too hard." Her mom sat beside her on the grass. "Every great journey starts with a little wobble," she said softly. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you try anyway. Think of your confidence as a little engine inside you. It's ready to go when you are." Valerie looked from her mom's smiling face to the shiny blue bike. She thought about the little engine inside her. She stood up, brushed the grass off her shorts, and put her hands back on the handlebars. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Engine on." This time, Valerie didn't look down at her feet. She looked straight ahead at a big, yellow butterfly fluttering down the path. She pushed off, her feet found the pedals, and she started to pedal. Wobble, wobble. Then, magic. The bike stayed up, and the wind began to whisper in her ears. "I'm doing it," she shouted with a laugh. A warm, bubbly feeling spread all through her. It was confidence. It felt like sunshine. She glanced back and saw her mom clapping and cheering, growing smaller and smaller as Valerie pedaled on. The path wasn't scary anymore. It was an adventure waiting to happen. Valerie rode past the tall slide, around the cheerful duck pond, and up a gentle green hill she had always been too nervous to climb before. And at the very top of the hill, she found a secret. A hidden meadow bloomed with wildflowers of every color, and tiny butterflies danced in the warm air. From here, she could see her whole neighborhood. It was a view she had never seen before. Valerie took a deep, happy breath. Her mom was right. Her little engine of confidence had brought her somewhere new and beautiful. She knew as she hopped back on her bike that this was only the beginning. With confidence, she could ride anywhere she could imagine. The Friendship Map. Maya, Leo, and Chloe were the best of friends. Their favorite place in the whole world was their cozy treehouse, nestled in the branches of a big oak tree. But on this sunny afternoon, a long sigh escaped Maya. "I wish we had a real adventure," she said, looking out the window. Just then, Chloe, who was sweeping the floor, bumped a loose floorboard. Clunk. Underneath, tucked away in the shadows, was a dusty rolled-up tube tied with a faded red ribbon. "What's this?" she chirped, her eyes wide with excitement. Carefully, they untied the ribbon and unrolled their discovery. It was a map, not like any map they had ever seen. It was drawn on old, crinkly paper and showed familiar places in their town. The park, the library, the old bridge, but with strange symbols and a winding dotted line that ended in a big, bold X. "A treasure map," Maya declared, her boredom completely forgotten. "We have to follow it." Leo looked a little nervous. "It looks really old," he said, but Chloe was already grabbing her backpack. "An adventure? Let's go." The first symbol on the map led them to the giant, twisty slide at the park. The clue was supposed to be at the very top. "It's too high for me to reach," said Chloe. "I have an idea," said Leo. He knelt down, and Maya climbed carefully onto his shoulders to retrieve a small, carved wooden bird from a nook at the top of the slide. The wooden bird had a tiny riddle carved on its wing, "Where stories sleep and silence speaks." "The library," whispered Chloe. Inside, they tiptoed through the tall shelves. The map led them to a big book about pirates. Tucked inside was the next clue, a single, shiny key. The key fit perfectly into a rusty lock on a forgotten gate behind the old stone bridge. Creak! The gate swung open into a part of the woods they had never explored before. The path was overgrown, and the trees whispered secrets to the wind. Leo held Maya's hand for a moment. "As long as we're together," he said. Finally, the dotted line on the map ended. In the middle of a sun-dappled clearing stood a small, weathered wooden chest. The X was marked on the ground right in front of it. "We found it!" They all cheered, gathering around the chest, their hearts thumping with excitement. With a deep breath, they lifted the heavy lid. Inside, there was no gold or sparkling jewels. Instead, nestled on a bed of soft moss, were 3 smooth gray stones. Each stone had a part of a picture carved on it. When they placed them together, they formed a perfect circle of 3 friends holding hands. Underneath the stones was a small, folded note. Maya unfolded the note and read it aloud. "The greatest treasure is not what you find, but who you find it with." They looked at the stones, then at each other, and smiled. They hadn't found gold, but they had solved riddles, been brave, and done it all together. Sitting there in the golden afternoon light, they knew the note was right. Their friendship was the real treasure. Luke's paper rocket. Luke was a boy with stars in his eyes and a universe in his head. His favorite adventures didn't happen in a park or a playground, but right on the floor of his room, with paper, scissors, and a box of colorful crayons. Today, he was building his greatest creation yet, a rocket ship. He folded and taped and drew fiery fins and a pointy nose cone. He named his ship the Starhopper and wrote his name, Captain Luke, right on the side. It wasn't just paper and crayons anymore. It was a promise of adventure. 10, 9, 8, Luke whispered, holding the Starhopper tight. He closed his eyes and imagined the rumble of mighty engines. 3, 2, 1, blast off, he shouted. A great whoosh filled the room. When he opened his eyes, his bedroom was gone. He and the Starhopper were soaring through a sea of sparkling, twinkling stars. Planets swirled by like giant marbles, and the moon smiled down at him like an old friend. Captain Luke steered the Starhopper towards a fluffy, glowing comet. He landed with a gentle poof. Sitting on the comet, humming a sparkly tune, was a little creature shaped just like a star. "Hello," the star creature chirped. "My name is Nova." "Welcome to the cosmic stream," Nova said, pointing a sparkly arm. "You can see everything from here." Together, they watched ringed planets do slow cartwheels and shooting stars play tag across the velvet black sky. "Your ship is very nice," Nova said, tapping the Starhopper gently. "It's made of paper, but it flew all the way here." Luke nodded proudly. "It's powered by dreams," Nova explained, "and dreams can fly farther than anything else in the universe." The sun began to peek over the edge of Luke's world, which meant it was time to go home. "Will you come back?" Nova asked. "Just follow a dream," Luke promised. He waved goodbye as he climbed back into the Starhopper. With another great whoosh, the Starhopper took off. The swirling planets and twinkling stars slowly faded, and soon, Luke saw the familiar sight of his bookshelf and his cozy blue rug. He landed gently back on the floor of his room. The adventure was over, but the magic remained. Luke held his paper rocket in his hands. It was still just paper and crayons, but now he knew its secret. He knew that even the simplest things could take you on the greatest journeys, as long as you had a dream to fly on. Pauline's Secret Garden. Pauline was a girl who loved stories, but she felt her own world was rather short on magic. One sunny afternoon, she wandered to the very back of her garden, to a place she'd never explored before, where a stone wall was almost completely hidden by ivy. Behind the ivy, she found a little wooden gate. With a gentle push, it creaked open, revealing a secret garden. It was a tangle of weeds and wildflowers, and many of the flowers drooped, looking thirsty and sad. Pauline felt a pang of sadness for the neglected plants. She reached out to touch the petals of a beautiful, drooping rose. "Oh, a little water would be so lovely," a soft voice sighed. Pauline jumped back. The voice had come from the rose. Though startled, Pauline's kindness took over. She found an old watering can, filled it, and gave the thirsty rose a long drink. "Thank you," the rose whispered, lifting its head slightly. Then other small voices piped up. "We need more sun," cried a patch of daisies, their faces hidden by a big weed. A tall sunflower, whose face was wise and warm like the sun, turned towards her. "This garden is magical, little one," he boomed gently, "but its magic fades without a helping hand. Each life here is precious and has a part to play." Pauline understood. She spent the rest of the afternoon working in the secret garden. She cleared away choking weeds, gently turned the soil, and made sure every flower had enough space and light. The flowers sang her songs of thanks and told her stories of the sun and the rain. She came to a prickly thistle who grumbled, "Be careful there." Pauline almost pulled him out, but a tiny violet whispered, "Don't. His prickles keep the hungry rabbits from eating us." Pauline learned that even the grumpy plants had an important job. As the flowers grew stronger, the garden filled with life. Busy bees buzzed from blossom to blossom, and colorful butterflies danced in the air. "They are our helpers," sang the daisies. "They share our sweetness with the whole garden." As the sun began to set, it cast a golden glow over the garden. It was no longer sad and tangled. It was a paradise of vibrant colors and happy sounds. The flowers stood tall and proud, their faces turned towards Pauline. "Thank you, our garden keeper," they chimed in a beautiful chorus. Pauline's heart felt as full and bright as the garden. She knew this wasn't just a place of magic, but a place of purpose. "I'll be back tomorrow," she promised. And she knew that caring for this little piece of the world was the greatest adventure of all. The Dream Chaser Express. Leo was a boy whose head was always in the clouds, dreaming of adventures far away. One evening, a ticket shimmered on his windowsill, glowing like a captured moonbeam. It read, "The Dream Chaser Express." Just then, a train that sparkled with the light of 1,000 fireflies chuffed silently to a stop right outside his house. A kind-faced conductor, with a twinkle in his eye, tipped his hat. "Welcome aboard the Dream Chaser Express, Leo," he said. "We've been expecting you." Leo stepped inside and gasped. The first car was a candy wonderland. A river of chocolate swirled past. Lollipop trees grew in sugary soil, and tiny gingerbread houses puffed marshmallow smoke from their chimneys. The next car was a wild jungle. Green vines hung from the ceiling, and the air was filled with the chatter of friendly monkeys. "My biggest dream is to be an explorer," Leo thought, as he bravely swung on a thick vine. Through another door, Leo found himself in outer space. Planets of all colors drifted by the windows, and the ceiling was a blanket of twinkling stars. He put on a shiny astronaut helmet and bounced gently, as if he were walking on the moon. The fourth car was quiet and calm. The walls were giant, empty canvases, and pots of paint glowed with every color imaginable. Leo picked up a brush, dipped it in shimmering red paint, and began to paint his greatest masterpiece, a friendly dragon with sparkling wings. Next, he entered a car filled with music. Notes danced in the air, and instruments played themselves. A cheerful trumpet, a happy drum, and a singing violin. Leo found a conductor's baton and waved it, leading the magical orchestra in a joyful song. The storybook car was the coziest of all. Bookshelves reached the ceiling, and comfy chairs were everywhere. As Leo opened a book, a brave knight and a clever princess stepped right out of the pages to say hello. The train began to slow, its gentle chuffing turning into a soft hum. The conductor appeared beside him. "We are arriving back home, Leo," he said kindly. "But remember, all these adventures are yours to keep." Leo blinked and found himself tucked snugly in his own bed. Was it all a dream, he wondered. Then, his fingers found something in his pajama pocket. It was the ticket, still shimmering with a faint, magical light. The Dream Chaser Express was real, and he knew it would be back for another adventure. Claire and the Starlight Lantern. Claire was a brave girl in the daytime, but when the lights went out, her room changed. The friendly chair in the corner grew long, spindly arms, and the pile of toys under her window became a lumpy beast waiting to pounce. The dark was full of secrets, and Claire was afraid of every single one. One sunny afternoon, her grandma came to visit. She listened carefully as Claire whispered about the nighttime monsters. Grandma nodded, then brought out a small, beautiful lantern made of dark wood and glass etched with tiny stars. "This is a starlight lantern," she said softly. "It holds a little bit of nighttime magic." That night, as the shadows began to creep in, Claire's heart thumped like a drum. She remembered the lantern. With a trembling finger, she flicked the small switch on its side. A warm, golden light bloomed in the room, soft and gentle. It didn't chase the shadows away. Instead, it danced with them. The light shone through the glass, and tiny, glowing stars were projected all over her walls and ceiling, turning her room into a magical galaxy. The monster with spindly arms was gone. In its place, the lantern's light showed her what was really there, her favorite armchair with her sweater draped over it. The shadow it cast now looked like a friendly bear, raising a paw to say hello. She looked at the lumpy beast under the window. The starlight showed her it was just her forgotten pile of stuffed animals and blocks. Their combined shadow no longer looked like a monster, but like a funny, lopsided castle waiting for a princess. The scary scratching at her window wasn't a monster's claws. In the gentle glow, Claire could see it was only the branch of the old oak tree, swaying in the breeze. Its shadow on the curtain looked like it was waving goodnight. Claire giggled. The lantern wasn't magic because it made the dark go away. It was magic because it helped her see what was truly there. The monsters were just shadows, and shadows were nothing to be afraid of. Feeling brave, Claire picked up the lantern and tiptoed around her room, introducing herself to all the familiar shapes. "Hello, Mr. Armchair Bear," she whispered. "Good night, Lumpy Castle." The dark was no longer a scary place. It was her kingdom. The next night, when her mom turned off the light, Claire took a deep breath. She didn't turn on the lantern right away. She looked into the soft darkness and saw her chair, her toys, and the tree outside. She knew the bravery wasn't in the lantern. The bravery, like the starlight, was inside her all along. Thomas and the Wonder Balloon. Thomas was a boy who dreamed of clouds, not just watching them, but touching them. In his grandfather's old workshop, covered in a dusty sheet, was his dream machine, a hot air balloon, folded and forgotten. It was patched in a dozen places, and the basket was woven with stories of old adventures. One sunny morning, with a heart full of courage and a map drawn in crayon, Thomas decided it was time. He dragged the balloon out into a wide, green field. With a mighty whoosh from the burner, the colorful fabric began to swell, rising like a sleepy giant waking from a long nap. The basket gave a little lurch, and then, gently, it lifted off the ground. His house, his street, his whole town grew smaller and smaller, until they looked like tiny toys on a giant green carpet. "Wow," Thomas whispered, his face pressed against the side of the basket. He steered the balloon towards a big, fluffy cloud that looked like a scoop of vanilla ice cream. As he floated inside, everything turned soft and white. But then he saw it. The cloud wasn't just water vapor. It was a floating island with rivers of sparkling dew and trees made of spun sugar. He landed the balloon softly on the sugary ground. He tasted a leaf from a lollipop tree and watched tiny, shimmering birds with wings like stained glass flit from branch to branch. The air hummed with a sweet, quiet melody. But adventure was calling. Thomas waved goodbye to the candy island and soared higher. Above the clouds, the sky turned a deep, midnight blue, even though it was still daytime. Here, the stars weren't just dots of light. They were giant, glowing crystals that chimed like bells when the balloon drifted past them. Next, he dipped below the clouds and found a world that made him giggle. It was a land of upside-down mountains. Their snowy peaks pointed down towards a sparkling sea, and waterfalls flowed upwards, disappearing into the sky. As he floated near one of the floating peaks, a friendly creature with fur like moss and gentle, glowing eyes peeked out from a cave. It chittered softly and offered Thomas a glowing fruit that tasted like sunshine and laughter. Thomas knew he couldn't stay forever. He thanked his new friend and turned the balloon towards home. He flew back past the crystal stars and through the candy floss clouds, his mind buzzing with all the incredible things he had seen. He landed the balloon gently in the same green field just as the sun began to set, painting the real sky with colors of orange and purple. The world outside his balloon was familiar, but Thomas saw it differently now. He knew it was just one small part of a universe filled with endless wonders waiting to be discovered. Anna's sky painting umbrella. Anna loved gray days. While others missed the sun, Anna found magic in the soft light and the pitter-patter of raindrops. On one such drizzly afternoon, tucked away in her grandmother's attic, she found something special, a plain, forgotten umbrella. It wasn't a fancy umbrella. The handle was smooth, worn wood, and the cloth was a simple, cloudy gray. But as Anna's fingers brushed against the fabric, she felt a tiny hum, like a secret waiting to be told. "I think you need some fresh air," she whispered to it. Outside, the world was a watercolor of grays and blues. Anna took a deep breath of the rain-scented air and, with a little swoosh, she popped the umbrella open above her head. The moment it opened, a brilliant ribbon of ruby red unfurled from the top of the umbrella and painted itself across the clouds. Anna gasped, her eyes wide. The gray sky was now streaked with a vibrant, joyful red. She closed it and opened it again. Whoosh! A new color, a sunny, cheerful yellow, arched right next to the red. Again, whoosh! A deep, calming blue. With every opening, a new color decorated the sky, creating a magnificent rainbow that wasn't supposed to be there. Soon, windows and doors began to open. Her neighbor, Mr. Chen, peeked out. "My goodness," he exclaimed, pointing up. The baker, Mrs. Rosa, came out of her shop, wiping flour from her hands, her eyes wide with wonder. More people gathered in the street, their faces turned to the sky. They pointed and smiled at the magical colors dancing above them. The usual quiet gray street was now filled with chatter and laughter. A little boy named Leo, who was usually too shy to speak, tugged on Anna's sleeve. Can I try?" he asked quietly. Anna's heart filled with a warm glow. The magic wasn't just for her, it was for everyone. "Of course," she said, handing him the umbrella. Leo's face lit up. He opened it, and a brilliant splash of emerald green joined the rainbow in the sky. Everyone cheered. One by one, the neighbors took turns, each adding their own color to the sky. The rain stopped, but the colors remained, a beautiful tapestry woven by the whole neighborhood. The plain, gray umbrella had painted their world with joy and brought everyone together. Anna smiled, knowing that the most beautiful magic is the magic that is shared. Martin's magnificent castle. Martin loved the beach. He loved the salty air and the squishy sand between his toes. But most of all, he loved to build. Today, he was going to build the biggest, most magnificent sandcastle the world had ever seen. He scooped up wet sand, plopping it down as fast as he could. "Higher, higher," he chanted. But the faster he went, the more the walls of his castle wibbled and wobbled and tumbled down. Sploosh! Grr! Martin stomped his foot. This was not magnificent. This was a mess. He plopped down on the sand with a huff, ready to give up. Just then, he saw a tiny crab, carefully digging a hole, one little clawful at a time. The crab didn't rush. It took its time, scooping and patting, scooping and patting. Slowly but surely, its little home in the sand grew deeper and stronger. Martin watched, his frustration melting away. "Patience," Martin whispered to himself. He remembered his grandpa telling him that word. Great things are achieved with patience. He picked up his shovel. He would try again, but this time he would be slow and steady. First, he built a strong, wide base. He packed the sand down firmly with the back of his shovel. Pat, pat, pat. He hummed a little tune. no longer in a hurry. Then, scoop by scoop, he started building his towers. One scoop, pat it down. Another scoop, pat it down. He used a seashell to carve a big door and his fingers to poke little windows. The sun began to dip towards the ocean, painting the sky orange and pink. Martin stood back and looked at his work. It wasn't just a sandcastle, it was a sand fortress. It had tall towers, a strong wall, and he'd even dug a moat all the way around. A few other children who were packing up their toys came over to see. "Whoa," said a little girl. "That's the best sandcastle ever." A boy asked, "How did you build it so big?" Martin looked at his magnificent castle, then over to where the little crab had been working. He smiled a big, happy smile. "With a little bit of patience," he said proudly, and he knew it was true. Sophia's Star Cake. Sophia was a little girl who loved the night more than the day. Not for the crickets or the moon, but for the stars. "I wish I could bake a cake that shines just like them," she would sigh, her nose pressed against her window pane. One day, Sophia decided she would try. She got out the flour, the eggs, and the sugar. She mixed and stirred with all her might, imagining a night sky in her bowl. She put the cake in the oven, hoping for magic to happen. But when the timer buzzed, Sophia's cake was just a cake. It was brown, it smelled delicious, but it didn't shine. Not one little bit. A tear rolled down her cheek and landed on the sparkleless cake. Just then, her grandmother came into the kitchen. "What's the matter, my little star?" she asked, wrapping Sophia in a warm hug. Sophia sniffled. "I wanted to make a star cake, but I forgot the sparkle." Grandmother smiled. But the most important ingredient isn't found in the pantry. The best ingredient of all," she whispered, "is imagination." "Let's try again," said Grandmother. "First, we need to catch some moonlight." They went into the garden and pretended to scoop the silvery moonbeams into their hands and add them to the bowl. Next, they added a whisper of the night wind and 3 firefly giggles. Sophia laughed as she stirred the batter, which now seemed to swirl with an invisible light, and a pinch of shooting star wishes. Sophia added. They put the new cake in the oven. This time, as it baked, a soft, warm light began to glow from inside the oven, filling the kitchen with a golden haze. Sophia and her grandmother watched with wide eyes. Ding! The cake was ready. When Grandmother opened the oven door, Sophia gasped. The cake was glowing with a soft, twinkling light. Tiny specks of light danced on the frosting, like a real piece of the night sky. Sophia and her grandmother cut 2 slices. The cake tasted like chocolate, sweet dreams, and a hint of starlight magic. Sophia smiled, her face lit up by her creation. She had learned that the very best ingredient can't be bought, only imagined.